Okay, guys, we are on Chapter 10, Session Basics of Internal Family Systems Therapy Workbook. So we are starting a new IFS session. Whenever you begin a new session, it is a good idea to start by checking in with the part you focused on in the previous session. Access the target part from the previous session. You may need to repeat some of the questions about getting to know the part in order to fully establish it in your consciousness and connect with it. If the part was still in process during the previous session, it is usually best to continue working with that part in the new session until you finish unburdening it. Unless something urgent has come up in the meantime, access the part and continue from the step you ended with in the previous session, unless any new protectors get in the way. If that happens, work with those protectors first. Triggered parts. A part can be triggered during any exploration. Even though you have gone through the process to become centered in self, a part may arise and take over the seat of consciousness without you realizing it. Here are some signals that a part has taken over. You speak as the part rather than reporting on what the part says to you. You get lost in telling the story of what happened, and it triggers a part. You begin to see the world from the viewpoint of the part, or you are caught up in its beliefs. You get more and more charged up with the part's feelings. Awareness is the key. The trick to finding your way back to a centered and grounded place is detecting that you are blended. When you become aware that you have lost your compassionate or curious perspective, you can work more effectively on unblending and returning to self. If you are working with a partner, you can give that person permission to point out to you when you are blended with a part. If you are working with a part in real time, that is, in a life situation, you can sense the shift in your body when you're blended with a part versus speaking and acting from self. Speaking for a part versus speaking as a part. The skills and understanding that we learn in IFS are particularly valuable in our interactions with others. Whether we are talking to business associates, friends, or intimates, parts language can clarify feelings and intentions, ease tensions, and create an atmosphere of open communication and respect. Generally, it is advisable to speak for a part from self rather than speaking as the part. For example, if the part is angry, instead of saying I am angry, you can say there's a part of me that's angry. When you speak for a part, you are more likely to be responsible for the part's feelings and issues rather than blaming others for them. You're less likely to say things that will hurt other people's exiles and therefore trigger their angry protectors. Speaking for a part is particularly useful when you're talking with someone about a touchy emotional issue between you or when you're trying to resolve a conflict with someone. This is especially helpful in intimate relationships. It is also advisable when working on conflicts in groups. It is a simple rule that helps you engage in true dialogue. Speaking for parts exercise. Think of a situation in which parts of you are activated, possibly a conversation with another person. Note which parts are present and explore the difference between speaking as a part and speaking for the part. So they have a little chart. So you talk about the situation, the part's feelings, speaking as the part, and from self, speaking for the part. You're supposed to fill those in as you go. What difference do you notice in your body and your feelings when you speak as the part versus for the part? Sample, speaking for the parts. Situation, a friend doesn't show up for a lunch date. Part, worried. Part's feelings, speaking as the part. What the heck happened to you? I was worried sick that you were in a car accident. From self, speaking for the part. When you didn't show up, a part of me was really worried that something happened to you. Disappointed. Where were you? I was really looking forward to being with you. I thought you were coming. Don't I mean anything to you? When you didn't show up, I was disappointed, and a part of me felt like I didn't mean anything to you. Angry. You are so selfish. Didn't you know I was waiting for you? You don't think of anyone but yourself. Get it together. You can't even show up for your friends. A part of me was so mad at you when you didn't show up. Judgmental part. You're such a loser. You can't even show up when you say you will. I know that a part of me can be very judgmental, and it was hard to control it when you didn't show up as promised. Parts detection. When you are getting to know a protector, A part may become activated and need to be worked with. There are a number of possibilities. A concerned part is blended with you in a way that disrupts the process. Here are some examples. See Chapter 6. You're figuring out the part or describing it rather than asking questions and listening for its responses. A thinker or an administrator part, you feel angry at the target part. An angry part has been activated. You feel as though you want to stop the work, an avoidant part. You become more and more intellectual in your approach to the work, an intellectualizer or an achiever part. You space out, a foggy part or a dissociator. You get blocked emotionally, an avoidant part or another protector. You start thinking about other things, a distractor part. The trick is detecting the part, becoming aware that something is disrupting your IFS process, and then realizing it means that a concerned part has been activated and is blended with you. Once you become aware that a part has arisen, you focus on that part and find out what it is doing and why. You are especially interested in finding out what it is afraid of that made it disrupt your process. A good question is, what are you afraid would happen if you weren't doing your job right now? When you have gotten to know the part and have established some trust, you can ask it to relax, step aside, and allow you to continue your work. However, you may need to switch your focus, make this part the target part, and work with it further. An exile is activated. This is usually the exile that is being protected by the target protector. The trick is to realize that it is a different part from the target part, which may not be obvious. For example, you're getting to know a part that tends to avoid doing certain things in your life, and you feel the shame that it is trying not to feel. This is probably the exile that the protector is trying to avoid. It is usually a good idea to acknowledge the exile and then ask it to wait. You can explain to it that you will be coming to heal it, but first, you must get to know the protector and get its permission. See Chapter 11. A polarized part, another protector, is activated that is polarizing with the target protector. For example, you're working with a part that avoids things in your life, and a part pops up that really wants to get those things done. See Chapter 22 on polarization for how to work with this type of situation. Another protector is activated that protects the same exile that is being protected by the target protector. For example, a part comes up that is skeptical about inner work, and this part is trying to protect against the same shame exile that the avoidant part is protecting. Ask the second protector to step aside until you have finished working with the target protector, the avoidant part. You may need to reassure it that you won't contact the exile, shame, until you have its permission. When you finish getting to know the target protector, do the same work with this second one. Get permission from both of them before you get to know the exile. Exercise. Detecting a part that has taken over. Think of a situation in which you were working with one part and became aware that another part had taken over. Part you were working with. So you list that part that took over, you list that. What type of part it was. Was it concerned, exile, polarized part, or protector? What was the part's motivation? What was the part's fear? How you worked with the part. And then we have steps in the IFS process, working with exiles. Step 2, getting permission to work with an exile. Step 3, getting to know an exile. Accessing an exile, unblending from an exile, unblending from concerned parts, finding out about an exile, and developing a trusting relationship with an exile. Step 4, accessing and witnessing childhood origins. Step 5, reparenting an exile. Step 6, retrieving an exile. Step 7, unburdening an exile. Step 8, integration and unburdening a protector. So it's got some images. I think you want to look at those. Okay, and then we have exile is hidden away, which looks like this. And then protector protects exile by blocking access to it. And then the protector grants permission for self to get to know exile. Okay, so we are on Chapter 11. It's just a couple pages, and then we'll be done. Getting permission to work with an exile. Exiles are parts that hold pain. They're usually, but not necessarily, young parts. Because it was not acceptable to feel or experience the discomfort they had in childhood or during times of trauma, they have been exiled from ordinary consciousness. Protectors developed to keep exiles out of consciousness so we could function in everyday life. Principles. Whenever there is a protector, there is always one or more exiles that is protecting. One of the key IFS principles is that you never work with an exile until you have permission from all the protectors who have concerns about it. It's important to get permission from protectors so they support access to the exile. Otherwise, they'll continue to feel protective and will work hard to block access. It is best to make sure you have a trusting relationship with the protector before you ask permission to get to know the exile. Asking permission for access to an exile is a big interruption to the system of protection that has likely been in place for a long time. It is not to be taken lightly. Review steps part 1 through 5 of Working with Protectors, chapters 7 and 9, before asking permission to work with an exile. When you have permission to make contact with the exile, when the protector has granted you permission to make contact with the exile, you may become aware of a number of subtle or not so subtle shifts in your consciousness. Here are just some of the possibilities. Okay. You may become aware of an exile by feeling it or hearing its voice. In some cases, you may think it is still the protector, but it may be the exile surfacing. You may become aware of which exile is being protected, especially when the protector tells you what it is afraid would happen if it didn't do its role. For example, the protector might say, "I'm afraid that you will be flooded with sadness." You may have an image of the exile behind or below the protector or in a far off corner of your mind. You may experience vague or intense sensations, such as a smell, a taste, a bodily tension, or an image of a scene. You may have a memory of a time, a place, or an incident that was significant in your childhood. You might also ask the protector to show you the part it is protecting. Exercise. Making initial contact with an exile. For the exercises in the next chapters, you may either continue the work you have been doing with the protector you were working with earlier, or begin a new piece of work by accessing a protector you are curious about now. Remember to go through all of the steps, part 1 through 5, in working with a new protector. Accessing it, unblending from concerned parts, and getting to know and developing a relationship with the protector so you have permission to work with the exile. If you are continuing your work with the protector from the previous exercises, take some quiet moments to go inside, ground yourself by focusing on your breath, and feel yourself being supported by whatever you are sitting or lying on. Reconnect with the protector and make sure it remembers who you are before you begin to make contact with the exile. So you're going to list the protector, its positive intent, what the protector feared would happen if it didn't play its role, the protected exile, how you know that the exile that has been protected is available. You may ask the protector directly for permission to get to know the exile. After you get permission, it may be a good idea to check to see if there are any other protectors that object to your contacting the exile. Other protectors that come up around this exile. If the protector doesn't give permission, ask what its concerns are or what it is afraid would happen if you contacted the exile. Its fears or concerns that this protector has about contacting the exile. So then the sample is making initial contact with an exile. Protector is angry protector. Positive intent, wants to be accepted by others. What the protector feared would happen if it didn't play its role. She would be around people who would be mean to her and criticize her. Exile, the good girl. How you know that the exile has been protected is available. I have an image of a sad little girl about age 7. Other protectors, an inner critic that looks like the nun in the new school I attended. Common protector fears and how to deal with them. Remember that it is important to stay in self when responding to a protector's fear and concerns. It is helpful to repeat and validate its concerns before answering. Fear. The exile has too much pain, or it is a black hole of chaos and overwhelm. Response. Explain that you will stay in self and get to know the exile. Assure it that you will move slowly, step by step, and not just dive into its pain. Fear. There isn't any point in going into the pain. Exile. can't change it. The exile can't change. The past is the past. Response. Explain that it is possible to heal the exile. IFS knows how to do that. Fear. The protector will no longer have a role and therefore will be eliminated or lose power. Response. Explain that the protector can choose a new role in your psyche. Fear. The protector doesn't trust you. Response. Ask why and work on that issue with the protector. While working with an exile, it is common for a protector to pop up. Use your parts detector to recognize if this happens. Notice if you're feeling state or body energy changes. If you are working with someone else, notice any changes in tone of voice or physical movements. If the protector that arises is the one you are already working with, ask what its concern is and why it still doesn't want to give permission. Work with it until it is comfortable again. If it is a new protector, spend some time getting to know it and then ask for permission to work with the exile. How did you handle your protector's fears or concerns? What did it need to hear from you? Okay, guys, that is it for today. We'll pick up with chapter 12 on blending from an exile next time.